right, so this was the conversation that was between myself and Third Eye Meditation. I hope you enjoy it. And go. All
All
right.
right.
Just yeah, just to start it off, I will send you a copy if you want.
Mhm.
Afterwards, after everything. Now, I guess since I'm hosting, I'll just start things off here. Now, as far as with my particular channel goes, the idea is to be the middleman, the medium between the church and those on the outside, because as you know, the church does not have the best reputation. And in many ways, I like to distance myself from the church just because if you're automatically lumped in with a group, it causes problems and issues because people generally have had bad experiences and they just like, yeah, no, you're a Bible thumper, and then that's it. They tune out. They don't ask questions. They just like kind of shut the door, so to speak. And since I've had issues with the church myself, and I mean in general, it doesn't matter what type, Baptist, Protestant, or whatever. Now, my parents went to Evangelical Free Church, so I guess it's a smaller sect. It's not one of the major ones. Um, but I want to say, just to kind of finish my introduction here, this isn't something I take too lightly. Now, since I've been around the block quite a bit, it's a death of a friend of mine is what brought all of this back into perspective and brought me back to some of the lesser known communities just because she was specifically a Draco Wiccan. And she and I were very good friends back during my deployment years, specifically during my deployments when we were talking online through an instant messenger. So 2008, 2010 were my deployment years. Yeah. I do miss her. She passed away in 2000, I want to say 14, 2015. I lost track, to be honest, but it's part of the chain of events that brought me to, where I'm at today and all of that. I do want to keep in mind, I do want to say that I want to keep my YouTube separate from the other platforms that I'm on, just because the image itself is where the image is something different. It's very unique, and it's to describe the things that have happened in my life in a very particular way, because I believe I've had someone, God allowed someone to be in my life and in my head specifically for over 13 years. And it's not something I take lightly. However, he specifically left me a week before Christmas, give or take. And we had a conversation. He just said, I need to let him go, and just simply turned around and left. So the whole is indescribable because none of it's physical at all. So in his mind is more of like, not my mind, so to speak, but whoever the being was. So yeah, if you, apologies. I guess you could just say you could use Dave. That's my first name, so just make it be more comfortable. So yeah,
Okay.
apologies. Yeah. So what about for you?
Well, my name is Gary, and Dave, I do thank you very much for having me on the show here. I think it's
Likewise.
yeah, absolutely. It definitely, just from our conversations prior to the show, I can say there's definitely a lot of insight, and I'm certain I can definitely spark up a good conversation here, because you brought up some very deep things, and I love going down those really deep thoughts. I'm with Third Eye Meditation. Third Eye Meditation started actually this year, and it was due to the fact that I had two events in my life that happened right around middle to end of summer. Traumatic ones, probably not worse than most people, but one dealt with work and then one was personal, and they happened back to back right at the same time. I don't want to say it threw me into a great depression. However, it did put me into a really deep, dark place that I was actually, for the first time in my life, scared of. And obviously that scared me. 20 years prior, I was always, you have your ups and downs like any other human being does, but I was always into the metaphysical, and I was always into meditation. It was something I've just done just as a way to help me control my life. And that's just what it was. But I never really realized that it was profound because it was a major part of my life. So when I went through all these here 2 bouts of, trauma, there was a small shop that I just found, prior to the events, Mind's Eye Metaphysical, and the girl there has Reiki sessions. First time in my life I ever tried one. I did it, and I walked out of there like a
Reiki.
completely, yeah, Reiki. And, I heard of Reiki. I heard about the chakras and stuff like that. I never really dove deep into it, but it was the first time I did it. And it was a very peaceful, wonderful experience. And like I said, when I walked out of there, I was a different human being. And suddenly my mind just started opening up again. And I had all these ideas. I said, I'm going to start a business. And that's what I did. I started Third Eye Meditation. And like you, I started going down like the YouTube channels, and I was doing a few videos there. And I said, wow, what's more important to me is I want to get the business's name out there, and I want to do it cheaply. So I said, maybe I should just do a podcast just to get my name out. So I did a couple podcasts, and within the first 4 episodes that I'd done, I realized it took on a life of its own. I started being heard in 23 different countries, and I keep looking at the analytics. I said, wow, people are listening to me. So I started Third Eye Meditation podcast. And then from there it grew. Now I'm doing the social media realms. I'm doing weekly shows, all this from one Reiki session. And I always, no matter what the question is, no matter what the answer is, I always relate everything back to meditation, because if we meditate, we understand what's going on. And my slogan is open your eyes so you can see everything that's going around you, and then open your eye, which would be your third eye, which is a very, very deep sense of practice. So I always start though, I really geared towards beginners, people that just felt they can never do meditation, or they've tried it and they feel as though they couldn't, or they had some obstacles. I gear for that very bottom rung of the ladder and help people work their way up. And I add in a lot more. You're going to realize too, I'm a motivational person as well. I do it as a motivational meditation. So I got a lot of power behind my voice, and I like to motivate people to get them to understand their true capabilities. So that in a nutshell is what Third Eye Meditation is. And I do apologize for the headphones. It's the first time I'm using the Zoom, and it seems to be extremely overpowered. I have no control over the sound volume. So that's all right.
It is. Well, if that's the case, I have my volume set at 41%. That could, that I don't know how that will I don't know how that will be for those who are listening. So I can try to adjust things a little bit. I don't really know, but I will try to see what I can do there.
Yeah.
But
I'm just going to go one here.
saying this out loud should also help the viewers understand that they might have to they might have to do something with their volume, just because this is my first time hosting with that.
Right.
I've never done a podcast ever. I don't know if I will, but we'll see. Just because YouTube is what I'm familiar with, and for better or worse, I'm sticking with it for the time being. There's been
absolutely go to what's comfortable.
Yes and no, because Facebook, just like YouTube, those are the 2 main platforms I'm on. They deal a lot with censorship, and that can really cause problems, because I'm not a blunt person. I've been around blunt people, but I like to be honest. I like to be forthcoming. And it's very frustrating when you have to kind of like tiptoe around just because there's certain things you can or cannot say. So for the most part, I'm trying to be respectful and all that, just because it's who I am naturally. I look good in a suit, and since I wear one for work, a uniform, not a suit, a uniform. First, I do private security, so I look good. I'm respectful, responsible, the usual, I guess, appropriate, all that. But yeah, since my first time, I will do what I can here. Now, I guess starting off here, since you're talking about meditation, yes, I've done a little bit of meditation. I do a lot of thinking. too much thinking. In fact, I've been told, like, you're overthinking, you gotta slow down a little bit. There's really no downside, but sometimes over preparing for the simple things can actually add more problems or more
Mhm.
complications to whatever's going on when it's just something very simple. But it's not like I've had to learn things the hard way. So, well, anyway, I'm getting off track here. That is actually a problem. I do want to let you
Mhm.
know. I don't want to go off track, but sometimes there's good things. Then I just go down the path, and I don't mean to. It's just kind of who
Mhm.
I am. Like, ooh, that's interesting. A little rabbit trail.
Mhm.
I'm gone.
Yep.
Um,
Totally
so
understandable.
if there's something you want to bring back, you want to, like say, hey, let's get back to the topic. Let me know just so I can get back. But as far as with meditation goes, I want to say that it's important, but in some ways I tie it to, I guess, what you call prayer, Bible studies. And I have trouble doing that per se, so I won't really go much into it. I'll just say any sort of quiet time, meditation, it's important. I struggle to do it because for me it comes off, I guess, wrong, just because I don't know how to explain it. Being alone is hard, in short, and I've always had issues with that. But when I'm in a group and they're just like, "Yo, let's go," sorry, when I'm in a Bible study and they're just pulling, the Bible out, that's not a problem for me. But for me, like alone, I don't know how to explain it.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, listen, anything can be meditation. That's what people fail to understand. Sitting alone in a room can be meditation. Sitting around with a group and within your own thoughts can be meditation. Daydreaming is meditation. Doing dishes can be meditation if you do find doing dishes to be meditation. Meditation is very, very simple. And once we grasp the knowledge of ourselves and exactly what makes us happy, well, then we've already achieved meditation. And then you could just add and build on to that. So it's very simple. And being alone, I can understand that. I sometimes seek out solitude because solitude could be very important because it's going to get you inside of your mind where you really want to be to understand it more. So if you have difficulties trying to explain something, explaining your feelings for a moment or trying to explain something in detail, once you're alone and in solitude, you'll see how quickly and easily all those thoughts come into your mind and you're actually able to spill them out. And that's what I kind of work with people with, getting inside your own mind. A lot of people think it could be a scary place, and well, it can. There's a lot of things in my mind too
Yeah.
that it's deep. It gets very deep. We need to just accept everything. As being a motivator, I try to tell people, us as human beings, we overcomplicate everything. Everything's overcomplicated. Just like you were talking about getting the show started, and it's small things like sound. I would have had, if I was doing my show, I probably would have been having a meltdown because I cannot get the sound right. But that's just me. But I take a deep breath and I just realize, okay, well, here I made an adjustment. I'm using one ear on the headphone, and now everything's fine. We make big issues out of very small ones.
It's
And
tied to control, wanting to be in
Mhm.
control and make things as perfect as possible, more or less.
Mhm. Absolutely. If you're a perfectionist, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to be perfectionist. You're going to, really worry about the small things. But you can be a perfectionist, but you can control how much of that you want to be.
Yep.
And meditation does help that. Being alone helps. Solitude, it all helps.
As far as with solitude, that is incredibly important. But when you're talking about, um, well, there's two things that stand out to me that I do would like to mention here. One, some people don't really want to be honest, and for that, I think it unfortunately takes time and some sort of problem or challenge to get to wake them up a little bit, because the important stuff are usually the things that hurt or the things that you don't want to tackle right away, just because it's like it leaves you in a place where you are not in control, or where there's just something that is painful that you don't want to deal with. The second thing is you've never it's more of a question, I guess. you're never worried about meditating at all, as far as like, I don't know how to explain it. I will try though.
Okay.
Are you ever worried that there's something out there who's trying to actually look into your mind per se when it comes down to meditating? Because with me, even though there's a hole and the hole that more or less is repaired, but having that being, which I do call dream, it's more of an acronym. Just I threw something there just to give it a name. Even though it's gone, looking into someone else's mind is actually something that I don't like doing. And I don't know if I attribute it directly to meditation. I mean, associate with it with meditation. I do have to ask whether or not that is something that worries
No, I feel very secure in meditation.
you. Okay.
The very basis of meditation, unlike, I understand exactly where you're coming from, and I can see exactly the direction you're trying to go. When we are in a meditative state, we're not really in a very receptive state. We're more flourishing. We're opening up our own intuitions, our own mind, and we're allowing us, what meditation really is, rather than thinking of being open in that sense to where you can be attacked from the outside, you're more receptive. You become into a very deep receptive state where you're just recognizing more of yourself, your soul, whatever it may be you consider it, and you're seeing that. So in that state, it's not a receptive state. You can still be receptive to stimuli that's around you, but it's all a controlled environment. And if you're grounded properly, you never have any problem, but there's never anything that's going to be from the outside getting in when you're inside of that state. You're actually at your most powerful state when you are in a state of meditation. So on that aspect, no, I don't worry about any, whether it be entities or spirits or anything that's going to come in and control my mind or see into my mind. Meditation is not like that. It's not an open state. It's more of a closed state that's personal to you.
Okay. Well, this is an interesting interesting point that is brought up here, and I guess I have to make a comment before I ask a question here.
Mhm.
I am not good with boundaries. That's bad for relationships, good for communications, and for discussions. So I have to ask, what are your boundaries when it comes down to meditation and justice a little bit?
Yeah, I don't really, to think of it, I never really thought of any type of boundaries for meditation. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process now where I'm developing my own type of meditation because there's so many different types. And like I said, I try and do stuff that's geared more towards beginners, but I'm doing something for myself that's going to be much, much more advanced. And it involves the universe, it involves being outdoors. So I need perfect weather, I need the perfect sky, I need clear skies. I really, really overcomplicated, I do admit. I don't really want boundaries when it comes to that. I want to try everything because I want to see what's going to work best for me,
All right.
as well as what's going to work for other people. Because obviously, I'm going to go on my show and I'm going to tell people, hey, this is one way of doing something, and they might be interested in it. My boundaries really stop when someone is actually uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable doing this. I'm saying things I don't want to see. I could pull people away from that. I understand where people have boundaries. Where me, I'm open to it. I'm very receptive to it. I'm crazy at the fact that I want to experience that because I want to know where my boundaries are. And as for right now, I don't know where they lie.
Maybe that's a good thing, not having discovered or have found, or in some cases, recognize your boundaries. But I have to say, from what I found out, if you haven't found it, don't worry about it because I think I found mine and it's actually stressful, but that's not something I guess I can talk about at this point in time. I just lack the words. Not that I don't want to, it's just that I lack the words. Some things, as you know, are better understood rather than talked about.
Right.
Yeah. As far as with the list that I sent you, I mean, I could probably tag it on Facebook just to bring it back up here, but is there anything there that you wanted to, I guess, talk about? Anything that stands, anything that jumps out to you?
Oh, there are many, many of them. Actually, I can go down the whole list with you if you like. Like interview form, just go for it because I do like questions. I enjoy being questioned. I'm very open. Honest as well. I don't hold back, so it's fine. And most of the questions, anyway, they're insightful, and we could probably go down some further rabbit holes with them. I know you were, because I just got done actually before you contacted me. I went through your last YouTube as far as the curses and all, which was very interesting to me. And I wouldn't mind talking about that for the simple fact that I found it interesting because you did it on a religious basis, which opens up tons more doors and more can imagine, even that what I'm willing to handle. But I found that very interesting. And so I'm comfortable with all the questions.
Not, I don't want to interrupt, but I do want to say I was trying to start off and have some sort of foundation with biblical curses, because that is rather broad. That goes, I want to say Africa and other places have quite a bit of history with that, and you could kind of get lost. So a good starting place, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to religion, the term religion, your major religions and all, I was born, raised Catholic. And for a good portion of my life, I went through all of the notions of the Catholic religion. And at one point, and I would say early 90s or so, I stepped away from it. It was no longer what I wanted or nothing that I felt any longer. I felt once you question the Catholic religion, they didn't want to give answers. And that bothered me because I'm a curious person by nature. So I walked away from it. Yeah, exactly. And when you're not getting help from the religion that's supposed to help you, I walked away from it. And I've been so much more freer from the mind because I have a problem. Yes, absolutely. And I have this idea, religions, it's a controlled environment. Everything is structured. That's why I stepped out of it and I went more spiritual. Because in a spiritual plane, you can make up your own rules. You could do what you want. You can release your mind your way without worrying about the confines or the structure of any one particular religion. So I might have knowledge on Catholicism. I don't have much knowledge on all the other worldly religions. And even Catholicism, I'm not well versed in it. But you could talk to me about it because I have a strong opinion on it for sure. But just so we could set the tone on this, that's my background. Right now, I consider myself pagan, and I don't follow any one particular pagan path because I'm still exploring so many different things, Buddhism and Taoism. I find it all fascinating, but I don't want to really latch on to just one. I just feel more comfortable under the umbrella of paganism because it keeps away all the structures of all the other types of religions and all.
You say structure. Do you view it in a negative way?
I do. I seen structure, and I think maybe that's because the way I learned. It was the same thing with schooling and all. I don't like anything structured. I don't like to be confined to a certain box or a certain way of thinking. I like it to be more open.
Now, I'm bringing that up because I'm someone who needs structure in my life, and going through 10 years in the military, learning about the structure and the fact that I can grow. And there is a bit of freedom in not having to worry about making choices and making the calls, and just letting things be scheduled out by others. There is a bit of a freedom there per se, of more from worry that I'm not having to give all the answers and having to be the one who tells everyone what to do. That, like, there's freedom there. Now, when it comes down to religion, I want to have to say that there's an emphasis on safe space, as what other people want to say. Like, people should be able to go to these institutions, these churches, these buildings, whatever you want to call them, and actually feel free, feel safe, and somewhat to a point secure. But being constrained, being restrained, that's what you're saying. I can see that. And the controlling environment. Oh, I was a kid let me back up here. When I was a kid, I was in church, and kids do need this meeting will end in 10 minutes. I guess we'll do a part 2 here. Now,
Okay.
this is free for me, so yeah, great.
Same here.
Part 2. I will make sure to send both these to you, but yeah, 10-minute one here. I'll keep
Okay.
track of that. All right, so I was interrupted. Give me a sec here. Kids, they do need to be directed. I don't know about the control or restrained. I'm not a parent, so I can only kind of speculate, and having dealt with kids, I can kind of understand why the parents need to actually tell kids what to do, like they don't know any better, or more likely than not, they're just going to do something that'll injure themselves. So in some sense, I would have to argue for a little bit here and there, mostly for self-protection and, safe space, so they're not going to get hurt. But for the most part, I understand where you're coming from. I had to ask you if you saw it as a negative thing, though, just because I want to better understand where you're at. Now, as far as with me, with where I fall with faith, religion, all of that would be, give me a sec here, a Christian Taoist. I don't normally talk about that very much, and it's something that I feel led to be there, and honestly, that's where I'm at. And it's taking quite some time. Now, it's more like people could say that Taoism is a philosophy as well as a belief, but for me, it's like I take the philosophy of Taoism and I take some of the principles, and I try to still remain in my Christian faith, so to speak. So it's not really the best of both worlds. It's like the structure from one and the beliefs from the other. I think that's the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm. We can incorporate all types of religions into one. There's never, like the way I see, at least the way I'm viewing things now outside of Catholicism, we could combine spirituality with religion. We could combine religion with spirituality. We could take different aspects of different religions and incorporate. What you call yourself is what you call yourself. And that shouldn't be changed by anyone, and it shouldn't be judged or anything like that, including inside the churches. Your belief is your belief. Yes, you could say, okay, listen, I'm a Catholic and I'm going to go to a Catholic church and I'm going to deal with, their structure and all that. However, I have my own belief structure, and I don't think they should criticize that, because they just feel they're the one religion. I'm the best religion. It's kind of like the bully of religions. We're the best. You have to practice. Everybody else should be us. That's what I've seen in the Catholic Church. And that's why I kind of stepped away from it. And since we're talking about things that we never really talk about, this is something I'll talk about, and this would be exclusive to your show because I never said it even on my show. Many years ago, as a child, when I like to say dragged to church, because I was still too young to understand what religion was. I can't remember the age, all right? Time is a concept to me I no longer follow, but as a child, I was in church, Catholic church, doing the sit, stand, kneel, stand, sit. I don't really talk about it because
I only know a little bit about that, but that's only because I went a couple times to my uncle's church. He was a part of the Catholic Church, so I went to just like 2 or 3 times myself. So I understand what you're saying, but
right,
I didn't go on a regular basis, so I don't remember much.
Yeah, the structure of it, again, it's just too structured for me. But as a child, I'm standing there. Now, I don't really talk about it because, there could be a lot of medical explanations for it. And obviously, anybody could challenge me on that. That's fine. But I know what I felt, and I know exactly what happened to me at that time. And later on in life, I was actually in the medical field for a while anyway, so I can compare the two. However, as a child in church, all the preaching going on and this service going on, and I was standing there as a child, fidgeting around, wanting to get out. All I remember was the world going black. it's not so much like I literally went blind probably for a good 3 minutes. And I remember freaking out and I had to be dragged out of the church. But the creeping blackness that creeped over my eyes, like it's not like just having a medical issue where you're starting to lose your vision. This was like a thick, oily black that I was able to see just covering my vision until it went completely black and I stood there completely blind. And I started freaking out and I started yelling, I can't see, mommy, I can't see. My mother dragged me out of church, all embarrassed. And, as soon as I stepped out of that church, my vision came back immediately, like just immediately. The doctors were saying, yeah, well, it's probably because, inside of a church, a lot of people, lack of oxygen, makes all sense to me. But from what I've seen and from what I understand in the medical world and how the process goes, it's not what I experienced. And in all the years, I never really focused on that or wanted to know about it, but something happened. And I think that's what just drew me out of that field and went into one that would be considered more creepier, because we, in the spiritual and the pagan world, we deal with some stuff just like that. But it was uncomfortable for me at that age, in that environment, and it's something I don't want to go back to.
Yeah, go through again.
Absolutely. And it's something I don't really talk about, but it makes sense to bring it up because something happened. And just like you were talking to me about, going into meditation, being worried about something else attack. Yeah, I would be the first one to say, yeah, I would be absolutely afraid of that. But I think now in my belief structure, I don't think that there is anything that can harm me, even though there is good and evil. We deal with that every day in regular life outside of, the spiritual world. Yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up and let you know that's exclusive now to your show. So you're the first to hear.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I do appreciate it. It's more of like a meeting of the minds in the sense that we're coming from our both different environments together to meet together to try to have some good conversations and come away with either more knowledge or at least a better understanding. As far as with me, with Dream, I was having something like a nightmare or daydream. I don't know what it was. It was something, but he got between me and the other entity that was terrifying me at this point in time, because it was probably lasted roughly a year to 2 years. And all of this actually happened. I don't really know how to explain it, but he came out of nowhere and got between me and the entity, like I said, and then looked back at me with the most red. I've never seen eyes quite that red, and it didn't seem like there was any actual eyes in there. He was humanoid. He was tall, roughly around 7 feet tall, and never once have I ever heard him say anything. But he had a profound impact on my life that when I talked to my parents and try to go see if this was any sort of a demonic being, and turns out it's not, because the person, I don't know what his qualifications were, but he was someone who's definitely qualified. Went to go check it out and to see if it was a demon, but turns out it's not. So it's not angelic, it's not demonic, it's something else. However, I still find it interesting because he kept pointing the way as far as the best way to go. And from what I understand, there's right, there's wrong. He pointed out what was right, what was wrong, and gave me a lot of like understanding as far as how things could be and how they probably should be, and that there is a lot out there. So it's not about worrying or being afraid. It's about finding one of the best paths as talking is not one of my better points. Okay. It's about finding the best path out there for you, so to speak. However, there are always consequences. It's the two major things. There's right and a wrong, and there are consequences. And to that end, it took me about 6 years to understand, because here's the thing. He looks like something that would come out of the horror, like a horror movie, like either Saw or Slender Man or something like that. But he had a very regal presence, a very old presence. All right, so I want to stop here and just to point out that I am using Zoom without a license. So if you're using this for free, there are 40-minute caps. And if you're recording, by the way, and it will just simply end the meeting right then and there if you hit the 40-minute mark without quitting and stopping beforehand. This happened a total of 2 times, so there's 3 entire segments that I will be trying to link together. Yeah, apologies. 30-minute limitations are not fun. As I said, when I get this stuff compiled or whatever it says, then yeah, I'll send it back to you for this will be the second part here. Now, I was trying to finish before the time cut off, but it literally just cut off. It just shut off. There was no warning, no like 1 minute. You know how you sometimes get like a 1 minute, 2 minute. Yeah, it was nothing like that.
Nothing. Went black.
Yeah, went back. Anyway, just to finish up what I was saying, having that being impact me on such a level that, I didn't ask for it, but at the same time, it happened. And it was in such a way that just kind of like left me in awe, but at the same time, I guess, afraid. And it took me 6 years to understand that even though he represents fear, there are 2 sides to it. There is a respectful side, and then there's the whole, oh shit, I'm scared. It's like watching a horror movie and then just like, it's like there's only one side that's ever presented there's only one side that's ever presented. The whole honor, respect, it's like people don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I've talked about, I didn't go into the honor respect, but I had a whole podcast episode on fear as well, because fear is the one thing that's controlling us more than money, more than politics. Fear is the basis for everything, but you are correct. There are 2 sides to that fear, and we need to understand both of it, because you're either going to be stifled with fear, you're going to be frozen with fear, or you're going to learn to respect it and you're going to learn to work through it. Which your image in your mind, what was created or whatever it was that was guiding you, we don't know. Do we know what God looks like? Nobody does, right? We can only picture in our own minds what, certain religious, beings look like and all. There is nothing. Even Jesus is portrayed as a white man, and we know he's, from the Middle East. So what we conjure up in our own minds, that is just a reflection of what we feel a person is. They may look frightening. They may look, like from a Saw movie, but it doesn't necessarily have to be frightening. It's just what your mind is picturing.
I just want to say, Gary, the Bible has recognized that there are multiple entities out there, and I have to question. Okay, I have to make a comment and a question. I wonder how many other deities and beings out there are. 2, I probably don't want to know. just because when the Bible does talk about the angel of death, it's probably not friendly. It's probably not the Christmas, like the Christmas decoration on top of the Christmas trees here, since it's, a tree's up in the other room. It's probably not like that. However, that being said, when it comes down to fear, there's also a third way to handle it too, from what I've understood. And that is basically be something that other people are afraid of. But that's not a route you want to go down, because there is there's a cost to everything. Let me just put it that way. And going down that route, I want to say that there's too many guys who went down that route already, but I think it ties in with other types of issues and wanting to be in control. I'm loosely tying that to other areas just because I know other veterans who've gone in, from the military, gone into law enforcement. Security can actually go into law enforcement fairly easily, but I would rather not have the additional stress in my life, so I'm just like, I'm good. Also, before I forget, since we did kind of start recording around 10:30, 11 o'clock, it's probably when it would shut off, I guess. I'll let you know when the other 10-minute warning pops up. Yeah. pull up my list here of notes because there's other things too. Actually, I have a whole ton of stuff that I've wrote down elsewhere. There's other notes. Yeah. Too many notes. You get lost in them.
That's why I never work by a script. I just go off the top of my head.
The top of my head is a scary place. It's also called.
So is mine. So
True, true.
yeah,
You know what? Give me number one shave and I'll be right there.
there you go.
Okay. So number 3 on the list there with do you think our paths in life are set before us or preordained, or do you think we have a say in them? Predestination, fate, causality, any of that?
Yeah, I firmly feel we are in control of our own destinations with some limitations. I do believe we are on a journey and our souls are just following a path. And
Yeah.
this path right now that we're existing in, this meat bag that we carry around, it's temporary. We all know that the one thing that's inevitable is death. So until that point, we are here to do what we will. We have free will. So we could go down bad paths, we could go down good paths, we can do. We're going to create that. We're going to do that. We're products of our environment. And unfortunately, we're ruining everything because everything we fear, everything that, we worry about, all the stresses or anxieties, we as human beings are actually creating that. So we can get rid of all the stress. We could get rid of all the anxiety just by changing what is creating those anxieties. It's deep. We could do a whole show on that. So that's why we are creating our own path. We're just here to live in this moment. Many of us are choosing different paths as far as religion that help guide us. Many of us, like myself, I'm choosing a spiritual path rather than a religious one.
Yep.
We're all going to find a destination at some point. We have that in our minds. It's set. That's our biggest fear. We fear death. We fear the unknown, and that's all death is. It's just the unknown. The only people who can really talk about it are the ones who've really been there. And I don't see too many of them around.
I think it's not that I'm afraid of death. It's either the pain that comes before it, or it's the fact that I just existed and never made an impact on anyone's life, and being forgotten sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to also say that, there was something else there. There's been a couple of shows and stuff that went around causality, about cause and effect, and there was even that part of Matrix with the Merovingian who talked to Trinity and Neo as far as with cause and effect in the second movie. I don't know if you remember that part, but I've never forgotten that part. I want to say, just moving on here, that was number 3. Number 4, I guess that would go into number 4 fairly well, with purpose and function. Do you believe there's anything tied to your life, any sort of like a purpose, or do you think there's a function for you? I'm still working on that myself, but there are steps laid for me that I've been able to understand and put together. As what I was telling you before, my friend, I believe her name was April, and when she passed away, there was definitely some steps led before me. And rather, I don't like talking about it because frankly, there's no real good way to talk about it, but I believe there were steps leading me to the furry community and to the other communities, adult communities. And what I saw there just kind of shocked me, I guess. Now, the fact that I had been there before, I was going back to old territory, old stuff that I was familiar with in the past during my deployment times, but revisiting them, everything had changed. So much of everything was new to me, and I had to relearn quite a bit. But what I saw there kind of broke me in a sense there, because you got young men, they're putting all their eggs into one basket, and they are pursuing relationships. they're not pursuing anything else. They're just pursuing relationships. And it's just like, there's a lot of relationships have a cost. And here's the thing. It adds more to your life in terms of it adds more to your life that's not positive than stuff that's beneficial. Like it adds more cost, it adds more problems, just because people, when they get into relationships, they bring everything with them, baggage included, trauma included. In fact, it takes a while to actually kind of work through those things. Probably it's probably easier to work on things when you're not in a relationship, so to speak. But like I said, what I saw there just kind of broke me, just because it's like everything that could go wrong was going wrong. And that's why I ended up sticking around there. I obviously I got kicked out of a few communities just because, like what you said with the structure and wanting the freedom, when you get the wrong people in charge, they want things done. They want everything done their way. And any sort of questioning outside is bad. All I will say is that, actually, I can't say that because YouTube will not like that, but let's just say when it comes down to consent, some people don't believe consent is needed. Or if someone is yours, you can do whatever you want. I disagree with that on a few different grounds, but you know what? When it comes down to relationships, just like with faith and belief, it's personal. But while I will not step in, if things are brought up in public that look like they're endangering someone, yeah, I'm going to say something about it. It doesn't matter where I'm at. So, yeah, that causes a problem. Anyway, I know I talked quite a bit there, but the whole purpose and function, I did want to ask you about that.
So, yeah, listen, relationships, human beings as a whole, you're talking about two people, but if you really want to look at it, it's two different worlds. Two worlds have to collide in order to work. So how do we do that? How do we make two different worlds that are running in two different structures and beliefs? And that's why I usually don't go down the road of relationships, or I don't really speak to people. Like, people come to me, hey, I need motivation because my relationship is going wrong, or so. I usually end it there because one, I have no place in two people's lives. I can't talk to the male half or just one half, let's say, of that party without talking to the other one, because that's going to tilt, the scales in favor of only one person. That's for two people. Two people have to get together and they have to work that out. They have to work that out themselves. Yes, because relationships, what one person is talking about, we don't know what the other person's thinking about or what the other person feels. So yeah, it's too complex. It's more complex than religion. It's more complex than spirituality. I always say, listen, when it comes time for a relationship, and if you're lost, you wait. The longer you wait, the better or a more quality relationship is going to come your way, rather than jumping into something just because of the want or the need for the physical connection, because that's all we really want or strive for in the beginning. Everything else comes later on in the relationship. So this is why we jump so quickly. It's a human basic, or it's an animalistic urge for the actual physical contact. When we find that right person where we connect more with them beyond the physical, and we can connect spiritually, we can connect mentally, we're comfortable with that person, we're able to be more vulnerable around that person. That comes with time. But how do you do that unless you're sampling? You have to allow yourself the ability to date people, to see people, different people, see what works best for you, but you can't force it. You can't force that relationship to happen. It's not going to happen if you're forcing it. You sit back and eventually you'll find that right person. You're just going to click and you will know it. Nobody, no motivational, no mind person, nobody can tell you for sure exactly the name, address, date of birth of the person that you are looking for in your life. That's going to come. That's going to come naturally, and it's going to come organically. But you just can't rush into it, and you can't jump into it. You can sample. I don't think that there's anything wrong with sampling. Date as many people as you want. It's the only way you're going to find that true spiritual connection that you're looking for.
Give me 1 second here. Did the video freeze on your end or okay?
Yeah. Okay. There it goes.
So there's a couple things too. Being a mediator takes time, it takes practice, and unfortunately it takes either a lot of success or a lot of failure. Generally it's not mixed in between the two. Like you learn a lot, you come to the table already prepared, or you come to the table empty, then learning a lot through failure. It really depends. After Will Smith or some popular celebrity talked about failure being a valuable teacher, I actually started changing how I looked at it, because if you're coming to something afraid, you're already putting expectations on the table that you're not going to do well, that you're just going to end up causing more problems, failing, or whatever. It's a bad mindset to get stuck into. So I have to say I've had some experience there, but getting between two people, not fun, not something I like doing, but I see the value, I see the importance of that. And like I tell everyone else here, I don't necessarily like being a part of these communities, but I see the value in being there because there's almost no one else there. Like all the other Christians, and I do say this respectfully, many of them just go to church, they show up, some of them wear masks, they're just like, they take it off when they're kind of in private. And I'm around people who wear these masks, like, I mean, actually having outfits, because furries, they look like mascots that you would find at a sports events, just dancing around, but there's a lot that goes into it. I don't know if I'm going to do any videos on that just because that would take a very long time to talk about. And frankly, I've just been kind of keeping that low. So I will be bringing this is something new that I've never talked about in any of my videos ever. So that's something new that you could kind of take to your channel as well. But this is something that would take a lot of time, a lot of investment. And even though I've been a part of this for years, getting it right I pride myself on accuracy. So I don't like it when I have issues talking, but when I do talk about something, I want to be 100% if at all possible. Now, the other part that I want to bring up here, since you did kind of miss out on, was the whole purpose and function as far as individuals and species. And that was number 4 that led from number 3 with the whole, do you think our paths are set before us, preordained, predestination, fate, causality. Trying to go back to that. So yeah, apologies.
No worries. Yeah. Do we have a purpose? Absolutely. We have a purpose, because as much as I say, we're not following any preordained path, we're creating it. That in itself is a purpose alone. Whether or not that purpose is going to be an individual purpose for yourself, or is it going to be for many other people, it's a choice you're going to make at some time. That choice could jump around too as well. You could be all about yourself for the first half of your life, and in the second half of your life, you realize, hey, maybe I need to lead other people. I need to inspire other people. That's going to be free will. That's going to be up to you to decide. There are many people that are hermits. They live alone. They don't worry about the rest of the world. Are they impactful? Are they making, an impact? Not outwardly, but if it takes one person to listen to that person's going to be inspired by that hermit. So yes, even they would have a purpose in life.
Was there anything in your life that felt like you were being led, any sort of steps, or was there like an understanding when it comes down to a direction in your life, so to speak? I want to say, give me 1 second. I want to say other Christians have said they felt called to go down this path or that path. So I do want to mention that some people do feel callings, and I do need that there.
Okay. Yeah. It's odd. I was always in a business, public service. I'll just say I've always been in public service my whole life. So was there a calling for that? Maybe there was, because as I'm going along now in life, I did sit down with a psychic recently, and he says, "Do you know what?" He says, "You are a guardian," and I kind of figured that. It didn't really take a psychic for me, but it was a good positive affirmation for me, saying, "Yes, that's what you are." So helping people, um, being beside people when they're most needed, is it a calling? I'm maybe learning that just now. It's just like taking this whole path and direction that I've taken at, towards the end of the summer, one Reiki session, my mind was opened up. I said, wow, I'm doing a podcast. And I realized people are actually listening. And just by looking at analytics, I could tell that I have regular people listening to the show consistently on a consistent basis. I said, is that a calling? Well, it certainly maybe is. And that's why I always said, wow, even if it's just one person left that's listening to me, I'm going to give that, just because, wow, that person hears something. Even you, when you came to me, you heard an excerpt of one of my podcasts, and it led
Oh,
into
your
this
video,
whole
yes.
conversation. Yeah, that little headliner that I did. I didn't realize that one particular podcast was going to mean anything to anybody, but I had a whole artistic creational moment, before I did it. But yeah, it sparked a conversation.
Give me 1 second here.
Sure.
The person who the person who introduced me, you to me, more or less, since I don't think she introduced me to you. It's the other way around. Solitary Coventry. I wanted to give her some recognition there.
I'm actually doing her show.
Yep. I would actually like, trying to set something up with her as well. So give it. Okay, so for the links for the particular videos, I'm going to put links down to her page on Facebook as well, just to kind of like give a honorable mention, so to speak. Yeah, that's the only reason why I wanted to just do an interruption there, just to say like the person invited there, just because it fits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Solitary Coventry. I'm actually doing her show this coming Sunday night, and then eventually I'm going to have her on my show as well. So yeah, absolutely. So just one podcast, one excerpt from a podcast kind of brings all three of us together. And then we got three separate audiences now that's going to expand this conversation. Whether we hear the conversation or not, people might be talking about this.
I didn't actually think about it, but I'll give it a thought as far as doing a three-way. But the problem with that is I can't do this with I have to actually pay for the whole thing for Zoom, so it's not cut off at the 30 minutes. We have roughly 10 minutes left anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so like if we're gonna do that, I would need to pay for the whole thing. And
Oh, absolutely. No, I was actually speaking on the terms like how this here related to the question as far as do we make an impact? Well, one little excerpt from my podcast that brought Solitary Coventry into the mix. It brought you into the mix. So now this is a three-way thing right now. So three people understood the message or questioned them or wanted to spark a conversation on the message. Now their audiences, my audience, your audience, her audience, they're going to spark conversation on that. So do we have a purpose? Sometimes it takes one sentence that we speak and suddenly, it opens up somebody else's mind. Say, well, I feel exactly that way, or I have my thoughts on that. It may be completely different, but I have my thoughts. So you're making an impact no matter what you're doing in life. Yes, human beings are making an impact no matter what it is. And you don't have to be a celebrity with, the backing of all of your fans or, all the platforms that you have access to. You and me sitting right here, especially now in this day and age, as much as we don't like the technology or the censorship, which I'm going through as well, but we have something. We can start breaking out. We still have our voice. And as long as we have our voice, we're going to make impacts in people's lives. And we're going to have a path that we're going to walk down because of that, just by the way we think, just by the way we speak, just about the way we see things. Somebody might or might not see it the same way, but it will spark a conversation.
It's more of a flash of insight there. What you're talking about is something that was brought up to me years ago that I just remembered here. And they were talking about in the men's group about leaving behind a legacy or a family. So in a sense, making I guess that would be the third one, is not so much leaving behind an impact or a legacy, but memories.
Mhm.
So because the people there remember what was said, they remember what happened, and it stuck with them for years. Now think of like the movies, the people talking on TV, the famous speakers, the past presidents, anything that you remember that stuck with you sticks with you to this day. Now,
Mhm.
it that is very powerful because it lasts. Now, I think in some way, shape, or form, we're all looking for that, but it's probably not
Mhm.
going to be the same in the same way.
Right.
Um, to that end, uh, yeah, actually, it leads perfectly. However, we probably have roughly 5 minutes before it cuts
Mhm.
off here. Would a third segment be okay?
That's
Or
fine with you.
okay,
I have no problem with that if you would like to continue.
all righty. Let's see here. I do appreciate it, by the way. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Um, so the last for number 5 is: do you believe in a creator, a god, or deities? And I'm asking this, and I'm being respectful because when it comes down to what is Wiccan and witchcraft, I'm not sure where you fall on that scale, but Satanism is a little bit different because you could either go on the Lucifer side or you could go on the whole, me, self-centered. Uh, I don't want to say selfish, say self-centered because it's all about yourself. The two aspects of Satanism, I don't think you fall there, but I do have to ask just
Mhm.
because I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, like I say, I'm following a very open pagan path, and paganism is just an umbrella term for many different religions that believe in more than one God. Uh, as far as me, myself, is there a one God, one ruler, one creator? I'm going to go down this road with you real quick.
All right.
We individuals are our own gods. And I was watching a documentary, and unfortunately, my mind fails me all the time when it comes to these things. I should write them down. But I was watching this one documentary based on just that we are our own gods. The second coming of Christ is not so much an actual physical coming of Christ. It is believed that once everybody, and I mean everybody, is on the same path of love, light, and spreading the word of Jesus and all, once everybody is on that same page, boom, that's your second coming. So it's a very metaphorical thing that they were speaking about, but it really resonated with me. I said, wow, that's something. We are a drop in a bucket, our thoughts, our beliefs. If we're
Yep.
spreading positivity, it's very small, but that reaches out and it branches out. But it's very difficult to achieve that second coming because I firmly believe in the yin and the yang. With all good, there is evil.
Balance.
It's always going to be there. It's a constant battle. So, is there a one God? It's
Well,
difficult to say.
I am trying to actually lean away from that, even though
Mhm.
the Christian background in me does. I do have to say that as far as with Christianity, there's one God, one Son, and then there's the Holy
Mhm.
Spirit, the mediator, so to speak. I'm trying to lead away from that simply
Mhm.
because it kills conversation, it kills
Yeah.
question, and to that end, um, that's kind of what this is about, is asking questions and not so much, as I said in privately, not about right or wrong, but about questions and about asking for understanding, clarification. Like, I recognize this, I accept this, I don't, like, I don't believe this, that kind of thing. Just
Mhm.
because in some way, a lot of this is personal and it's not going to be, it may be relatable, but it's not going to be something that you follow or
Mhm.
believe, I guess.
Right.
I'm saying this to you and to the viewers as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's my beliefs are my beliefs, and everybody has their own. Because it's religion is
Please
such
put
a
them in a mark.
wide. Okay, yeah, we'll get this quick. Our religions, they're very personal to each and every one of us, but there's so much mystery to it that it leads to very deep conversations. And if people remain more open minded towards that, you may learn a little bit more about yourself, not so much about the other person. And we could go down this road a little bit more, but I know we're going to be running out of time on this segment.
We got roughly 5 minutes before you wrap up here.
Okay, great. I'll just keep going down with the deities and, spiritually, yeah, there's many different gods and deities and fairies, fays. I believe in all that. I believe that there is little creators, because as a pagan, I believe firmly in just energies and the energies around us, and that we can manipulate them. I did have my first wife. She was not my first, my second wife. Sorry, gosh. She was Wiccan as well. So I followed a lot of Wiccan path as well. And that's what led me just to the broad paganism, because it's all kind of the same, where we're believing in the energies around us, and those energies are coming from somewhere, and somebody's obviously controlling them. And that's what I believe in. And as far as Satanism, I had on my show a couple of Satanists as well, and really interesting to learn about it, because it's nothing what people think it's about. It's not about sacrificing babies and all.
Let me know the next time you have a conversation, please. And this is kind of official here. Let me know. I will do another donation, because I would like to actually talk to one, come to a better place of understanding when it comes down to it. When it comes down to Satanism, I know very little. And as long as that other person is willing to talk, I would love to be on your show. I'd love to actually talk more about that with them per se. Well, with both of you. Now, since we are running out of time, and I'll do a third one, I just want to end up on something here that I'll send to you through a PM just to get your thoughts on it. But what you said reminded me of a video that I watched by the Thinking Ape, aka Stardust, about God and the void. How the entity there, which I believe, I don't know if this is actually tied to him directly, but the way he and other people have talked about it, God is kind of like the void, in the sense where, like outer space, like there is that God himself may be formless. It may not actually have a body. Now, Christians don't talk much about as far as the body. They're just like, well, church is the body. Right. But if he has any sort of a physical presence, what would that look like? Now, I will briefly say that when talking with Solitary Coventry, the idea that God himself could actually have, a planet as a body. He could live like Mother Gaia, Mother Earth Gaia. That actually was something that I had not considered or taken into aspect before. But Thinking Ape, and I do want to talk on the next segment with philosophy, theology, philosophy, thoughts and all of that. But I do have to mention that, because thinking that God himself could be formless was also new to me. Now, that would make sense in a lot of degrees here, just because if there are beings or entities out there, who's to say that they would rather not have an actual shape to contain them or define them? That's something to throw out there that kind of whoa, didn't ever actually consider that. And the church doesn't talk about this stuff for multiple reasons, because they want to have things, no, I wouldn't say control, but I'd like to say they like the things have directed in a way that is beneficial to them and the individual, because it's a win-win in that situation. By limiting the questions, you're kind of keeping the stuff you don't want to deal with or answer away. Now, as far as with the Catholic Church outright denying and just saying, yeah, don't ask questions. While I don't have experience there, I can understand why they would want to cut that, is because they don't have to deal with things they don't want to deal with. In the end, if you're cutting off questions, and I mean, you're going to someone and they're cutting off questions, they're either not dealing, they don't want to deal with things they don't want to deal with, and they don't want to set themselves up for failure, or they're just trying to redirect. Maybe control. That would be a third one.
Yeah.
All right. So let cut off once we're done here, 5-minute break, I guess.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I gotta use the restroom. I'm gonna fill up my drink here. Yeah.
All right.
Give it a couple
We'll
minutes.
join you for the next one.
All right. Thank you.
All right.